This is California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're with us. Over this half hour, we'll be speaking with 3 officials from Riverside County, although they will inspire us with information applicable to the entire state. We will be starting with Kari Verjil. She's the Registrar of Voters for Riverside County. Then we will be joined by Rusty Bailey, a council member and also a mayoral candidate, and then Mike Gardner, a member of the Riverside City Council. Thank you for joining us, Madam Registrar. It's a very exciting time, a big presidential election, and this week, vote-by-mail ballots are hitting the post office.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Vote-by-mail ballots will be mailed out to almost half of Riverside County voters this week.
That is stunning. That is stunning information that in a short amount of time, there are so many folks that are voting by mail. Tell me about that trend. What have you seen?
Well, we have seen the trend increase in Riverside County over the past 5 years. And as a matter of fact, we are at a record-breaking number of voters who are preferring to vote by mail.
And it's interesting, I was helping a friend register to vote. He was registering with a piece of paper. We'll talk about online in a second. And I saw that you could literally just initial a spot and it will allow you to be a permanent vote-by-mail voter.
Yes, it's quite easy to become a permanent vote-by-mail voter.
And I am. I am one of those and have been for quite some time. I think I became one immediately, but I used to always request vote by mail, not because I don't like going into the polling place, but it's just so easy.
Yes, voting by mail is easy, especially in Riverside County with the long commutes that our citizens have. It helps to vote at home. And also those ballots, as long as they're turned into our office early, we are able to process those before Election Day, and those results are the first that are counted on election night.
And here's something that's very important. The ballot must be received by Election Day, not postmarked.
Yes, the ballots must be received by the Registrar of Voters or at any polling place on Election Day.
It's funny you say that because I remember one time I forgot to mail my ballot in. So what I did is I just drove to a polling place. I didn't vote. That would have complicated it. I just handed them my VBM. They kept it in the envelope and it just went right into the box.
Yes, and that is one way voters could cast their ballot. I would prefer that voters get those ballots in early so they can be part of the election night.
Mea culpa, I apologize. There are other ways to vote early throughout the state, but if you happen to live in Riverside County, tell us about the Vote Early Weekend.
Yes, we are having a Vote Early Weekend, the last weekend of October, at 3 malls in Riverside County. One of the malls is the Galleria, the other is the Promenade out in the Temecula area, and then the Desert area at the mall.
Okay, I just have to say, and I admit I'm a bit biased, I'm a big advocate for voting. There is no excuse not to register to vote now. It is so easy to register to vote in California, and that's because of a system that just went online literally. Tell us about how Californians can register online today.
Yes, voting, casting your ballot is simple, and registering to vote is also simple.
So simple.
Voters can now register to vote simply by logging on to our website, as a matter of fact, www.voteinfo.net. Fill out a simple registration form, and they will be registered to vote.
And if you live in another county, we'll put on the screen that website. I think it's Register to Vote. I'm not exactly sure, so let me put it on the screen later. Talk to me about how this plan has been received.
This has been a positive experience for voters. We saw over 2,000 voters register online within the first couple of days.
That's stunning to me. It really is. And I actually recently interviewed Deborah Bowen, who is the Secretary of State, and she told me that already over 100,000 folks have registered online. I mean, it just makes you be proud of democracy.
It couldn't be easier, so there really is no excuse not to register to vote and then actually get out and vote on Election Day.
And she also mentioned to me that early statistics out of LA County, the largest county in our state, 61% of those who registered online were 18 to 35, which makes sense if you think about it.
Yes, it does make sense that our youth use the tablets and their phones, and it's never been easier to register to vote. So I encourage our young adults to take advantage of that.
But what's confusing to me is I know that in order to register to vote, you must sign your registration card. I don't know of a system where you can sign the screen of an iPad or whatever it may be. So how are you getting the signatures of the registrants?
Well, that's actually part of technology too.
Right.
With the DMV, the system works with the DMV, so as long as a voter is has a driver's license,
or even an ID card.
Or an ID card, that signature pulls through from the DMV records, so it's so easy to get that registration in. So there's no need to sign. As long as the voter has that ID card and a driver's license number, it would be just fine.
That's a miracle. I mean, it really is a miracle that in a state of 37 million people, that someone can register to vote and the signature can be found and put onto their registration, voter registration card, and that's an accepted method.
It's a wonderful program. We're so excited to have it.
I do want to ask you about a program that will be coming online. It's very new. I know that we don't know a lot about it, but I do want to get a sense from you as someone who has been the registrar, not only in Riverside County, but you had been the registrar in San Bernardino County. And that deals with what we know as same-day voter registration. What do you know about the bill that has been signed? What can you tell us about that?
Well, what I do know about the bill is it goes into effect in 2014, so I want voters to be aware that it is not something that's in effect for this election.
And as I understand it, that is not a guarantee. There's a technology side of it, but be that as it may.
Yes. And it is my understanding that voters will be able to go to their polling place on Election Day and vote. But at this point, it appears that they will be voting on a provisional ballot.
I had heard that from Secretary Bowen. And I also understand it may be that you wind up having to go to the actual registrar's office on the day as opposed to any polling place.
Yes, and we'll be learning more about that in the time ahead.
Right, I know.
But
I apologize for putting you on the spot, but it is an exciting development for those that are looking towards increased enfranchisement.
Yes, it's always wonderful to have our voters get out and vote. Registering early is always best so the voters can receive their voting materials and study ahead of time, but same-day registration is on the horizon.
And speaking of voting materials, look what I have right here. This is the beautiful sample ballot from Riverside County. I am a registered voter in Los Angeles County, and I hate to compare counties, but your cover is very beautiful and really makes you feel extremely patriotic with the bald eagle on the front cover.
Thank you.
How did you get to do that? You just do.
Yes, patriotic covers is something that we've always done in Riverside County, and we'll continue to do that.
So I want to talk to you about challenges that have faced Riverside County in the past, not under your regime, but let's face it, Riverside County and San Bernardino County are huge counties geographically, not to say, 2 million residents in each. So what are you doing to prepare for election night so that we don't see the delays that we had seen? I think it was 2010 when there were some very significant delays in Riverside County's counting.
Well, one of the things that we're doing in Riverside County is we have partnered with the Sheriff's Department to shuttle our ballots from outlying areas to our office.
And mind you, don't you go to the Arizona border?
We do.
Yeah, so outlying is far, very far.
Yes, and we have a helicopter, weather permitting, that helps shuttle those ballots into our office. For this November election, vote counting will take longer than in past elections.
Yeah, explain that. I understand that it's because you have two-card ballot. Explain that.
Yes, we have a two-card ballot for this election, so that increases the time to count the ballots, because instead of having one card...
But why are there two cards?
There are two cards because of the amount of issues on the ballot.
Right.
We have 11 state propositions. In Riverside County, most of our school districts and cities have elections for this.
And there are some very exciting races. I know you're not a partisan, of course, but there's some exciting congressional races, Senate races, assembly races. I mean, it really is an exciting time to be living in the Inland Empire, living in California. I mean, it's not as if, California may appear to be trending one way for the president, but there are so many important issues on the ballot aside from the presidential election.
Yes, there are community college district candidates, so it's a wonderful time to get out and vote.
And for example, if you live in the city of Riverside, there's a mayoral race. And in fact, we're going to have one of the two candidates coming up next. His name is Rusty Bailey. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on California Edition.
Which state first launched online voter registration? Arizona, South Carolina, Utah, or Vermont? In 2002, Arizona became the first state to implement online voter registration.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're still with us. Our guest is Rusty Bailey. He is a member of the Riverside City Council. He is also running for mayor. He is one of 2 candidates in a runoff. That election will be held on November 6th. How's the election going, sir?
It's going very well day to day and door to door. We are pounding the pavement and making sure that our voice is heard and our message is out there.
I want to ask you about what you are hearing as you politic, because I think about Riverside, a major city in the Inland Empire, which was hit pretty hard by the recession. Now, it's not San Bernardino, which has gone bankrupt, but look, the area is still struggling. And so what are people talking about as you knock on doors, as you phone bank?
Well, first of all, they appreciate the Riverside brand, and that brand is quality. And with Seizing Our Destiny, our economic development movement that we've created, it's based on quality of life and increasing that, continuing to look at ways to improve education, to improve economic growth and connections to new businesses and expand the existing businesses we have.
I have to ask you, as you know, I was a moderator at a debate in which you were a participant with your opponent, and we discussed the distinctions between Riverside and San Bernardino, and I want to expand on that because it is quite remarkable, as I said at the debate, a tale of 2 cities. You know, Riverside and San Bernardino are 20 minutes apart, and yet their destinies could not be more different. Why is that, sir?
2 main reasons. One, our public utility. We have our own Riverside Public Utility that allows us to control our electric and water rates as well as investments that we make.
Okay.
And we can also provide incentives for businesses to locate here by decreasing, you have an economic development rate, decreasing their rates for a couple of years.
And that's interesting because, as you know, the state of California eliminated redevelopment, which was a tool that cities use to lure businesses.
To attract,
So you have a tool.
We have that tool, and then we have the colleges and universities, 3 higher education institutions in the community college district that also is a competitive advantage when you're looking at places to locate your business or to buy a home. I think that gives us an advantage over other cities our size.
Now, as we speak today, we don't know for sure, but it does appear that UC Riverside will be getting a medical school. How will that impact this region, and Riverside specifically?
It's the biggest economic driver, economic engine that Riverside will see since UCR came, 50 years ago. And so we've got to put our emphasis on that and making sure that we have that located in Riverside, and I would say beyond just in Riverside, in the downtown area. And I think that's going to be more of an economic driver, an engine, if it's located down there, connected to the amenities and to the restaurants and to the housing that we have down there.
I want to go back to the state and its elimination of redevelopment. It is a very interesting dynamic right now, the tension between the state government and municipal governments. As I said, the state has eliminated redevelopment. Coincidentally, in this region, there were 4 new cities, Eastvale, Menifee, a couple of others, that grew up in the last decade, even this decade, but yet the state had eliminated a funding formula for new cities. That formula was reinstituted through the legislature, but the governor just vetoed that formula. And so it's clear to me that cities and the state of California are really, is it at war? Is that fair to say?
It's unconscionable and irresponsible for the governor to veto that bill for, I think it was $19 million in an $80 billion budget. That was, he had to say, basically, you don't mean anything to us, and we don't care about local control, and we're going to continue to attack cities, and education if you don't pass Prop 30, right? He's using that, dangling that carrot out there, that if you don't pass my proposition, education is going to be impacted and local government is going to be impacted. And that's, I think, an irresponsible way of doing business.
But on a grander scale, there's no doubt that with these 2 situations, it's causing a lot of frustration. But it really does go to a broader question. Presuming you are successful in November, you will be needing to interact on a regular basis with the state of California. And look, how do we get to a place where relations aren't so frayed? Because, look, cities are the lifeblood of the state. That's not to discount counties or rural areas, but I kind of think this relationship can be and should be repaired.
Well, I'm a government teacher, and so the way I teach it is that the local governments are the hands and feet of our government. That's where the work happens. That's where we fix the problems. And so if we don't have the ability to do that, the tools in our belt to do that, then people are going to suffer. And the state doesn't seem to understand that. There's a divide, so we've got to bridge that divide.
And what's ironic is you discuss Governor Brown, and he had been a mayor of Oakland, and he had successfully used tools provided by the state, redevelopment, for example. And so it is an interesting dynamic that, to close budget deficits, the governor has looked toward municipalities. We do know, though, that I think it's 22, I believe, passed a couple of years ago, which prevents further raids from the state to municipalities. But here we are, and I want to continue on this redevelopment question, though, because as I mentioned, the former mayor of Oakland, Governor Brown, used redevelopment. Riverside.
He lived in a redevelopment project, housing project.
Riverside, it's hard to deny that Riverside's downtown didn't benefit tremendously from redevelopment.
Certainly.
There had been rumors that possibly redevelopment could be revived when the deficit got larger back in the spring. That didn't happen. Presuming you're successful, is that one of your goals, to look toward a new version of redevelopment?
Well, I think that we need to look at something like an infrastructure financing district to some degree that would be able to put some money into projects that are infill development in older cities, right? Newer cities don't have to worry about that, but older cities like Riverside, more than 100 years old, we need to have another tool in our tool belt to be able to get rid of the blight. And that's what redevelopment really was focused on, was blight removal and making sure that we had some incentives available to attract development and attract investment in our city.
I want to ask you about one other issue, and it's a very interesting one. It's gotten a lot of play nationally, and that deals with the foreclosure crisis. You probably have heard that the county of San Bernardino has floated this plan. And mind you, their foreclosure crisis is more dramatic, I think, than Riverside, but they're equally troubling. And what the plan would be is that the county would take mortgages by eminent domain as a way to try to help homeowners who are underwater. The financial institutions have gone just ballistic over this. Lieutenant Governor Newsom actually has asked the Department of Justice to investigate whether there's been some collusion with the financial institutions coming out so strongly against. I don't expect that you've analyzed this plan dramatically, but what do you think about these kind of out-of-the-box ideas or solutions? Because it is very tough in the Inland Empire today.
Yeah, we've always been a little bit more conservative in our approach to solving problems, and so when you throw out eminent domain, people pretty much, their hair raises. And so, we don't, I don't think, intend to go in that direction. We're solving problems here by getting them together to the banks and letting them reestablish, that relationship and that connection, and hopefully, pay down their mortgage in a different way.
I want to ask you about presuming you're successful, your predecessor, Ron Loveridge. I understand he's endorsed your candidacy. So as a result, as you look forward, how do you want to serve as mayor, especially in the wake of a real giant? I mean, it's hard to deny.
No, you can't fill his shoes.
Right.
And so 33 years of service, I don't think will ever be matched when it comes to local, especially in Riverside. And he continues to serve. He's going to go back and be a professor at UCR and their public policy school. So, I would stay connected. I think he's a mentor of mine.
Right.
He has governed in a way that facilitative leadership, bringing people to the table to solve problems. I would see myself doing the same thing. I'm younger. I have a family right now, and so I think looking inward and connecting with Riversiders on a day-to-day basis over the next 4 years, and making sure they know who I am and what I care about is what's going to be important for the new mayor of Riverside.
His name is Rusty Bailey. He is a Riverside City Council member, currently a candidate for mayor. That election will be held on November 6th. When we come back, we will be speaking with Mike Gardner, a colleague of Rusty's on the City Council. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back.
Riverside Mayor Ron Loveridge was elected mayor in 1993. And what year was Loveridge elected to the Riverside City Council? 1975, 1979, 1981, or 1983? Ron Loveridge was elected to the Riverside City Council in 1979.
Welcome back to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're still with us. We are now joined by Mark Gardner. He is a member of the Riverside City Council. And I want to speak with you about an exciting development in connection with the Santa Ana River Trail and Parkway. Santa Ana is in Orange County. I've been to that river. How does Riverside get involved in this?
Well, the Santa Ana River begins in the San Bernardino Mountains in San Bernardino County, flows through Riverside County into Orange County, and goes to the ocean at Huntington Beach.
It's majestic. It really is.
It is.
I have so enjoyed my time, and I have to admit to you, sir, I've not been to the Inland Empire portions of it. I've only been to the Orange County portions of it, so mea culpa, forgive me.
Not at all. As you've seen, the Orange County portions are heavily used. There are 24 miles of trail that are completed along the river in Orange County, and they'll draw up to 10,000 people on a weekend.
It is amazing how well used it is. The bike paths are terrific, and yet they're not overcrowded. And so, 10,000 is a big number, but it works.
It really does.
It works. So what's the good news, though?
Well, the good news is that by the end of this year, you'll be able to ride a bike on all the way from Seven Oaks Dam in San Bernardino County to the ocean at Huntington Beach.
How did that happen in tough economic times?
Been working on it. There's a partnership of the three counties, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino, and 15 cities, the 15 cities that the path travels through. We've been working since 2006, when the partnership was started, to get the trail completed. And it will be complete but for a roughly 9-mile section around Prado Dam, where we have an on-street detour. So there'll be on-street bike paths, and you'll be able to make the trip from one end to the other.
So this cost, was it $100 million?
Ultimately, it will be a total of about $100 million. One of the big costs is a bridge in the Prado Dam area.
Which is where exactly?
Roughly Corona.
Where did we get this money?
It's a variety of places. There's some federal money through the Corps of Engineers along the river. There have been local contributions from the cities and the counties. There's some state money through former propositions that allocate money for this kind of thing. So it's a real conglomeration. There's partnership in funding as well as management.
Now, I must speak about a couple of the cities that are part of that partnership, Jurupa Valley and East Vale. They are new cities. They are part of a quadrant of 4 cities in Riverside County that have faced tremendous challenges. As you know, the state had taken money from new cities as a way to help close its deficit. This year, the legislature passed a bill to restore that funding, and most recently, the governor vetoed that bill. That has caused tremendous consternation amongst leaders throughout the Inland Empire. Talk to me about that. I know Riverside obviously was not impacted by this bill, but that relationship, that tension that seems to be growing between the state and cities.
There is some of that, and the counties play a role as well. There's kind of a tighter partnership between the counties and the state than there is between the cities and the state.
Well, the county is an arm of the state. Cities are not arms of the state.
Correct. The 4 new cities that you mentioned, the 4 newest cities in the state, were all dependent on some vehicle license fees that were by law to go to them, and then the legislature, at the governor's urging and with the governor's support, diverted those dollars to state uses. The legislature tried to patch that up, in fact, by 2/3 vote in each house.
And I was wondering, I'm going to be speaking with Kevin Jeffries later on a different episode, and I wonder if a veto is a possibility.
Well, I think an override is unlikely because the majority of the votes were from the Democratic Party, and they're willing to go against the governor to some extent, but not dramatically. I don't think that there are votes to override the governor's veto.
But let's talk more broadly, though, about this tension, because we have seen it grow for a couple of years now. The governor had been mayor of Oakland. And while he was mayor of Oakland, he used a tool that we know as redevelopment. very successfully, as I understand it. Well, last year, the governor decided that redevelopment was a luxury we could not afford, and so was able to get the legislature to eliminate it. The Supreme Court of California upheld that elimination, and now there is no more redevelopment. Riverside, in a lot of ways, is a city that was perceived to have used redevelopment effectively. And so we have redevelopment funds being taken. We have these new city funds being taken. We have, I guess, is it 22 was a proposition passed in 2010 to try to prevent these raids of local dollars by the state. It's not a pretty sight. It's not.
And while I disagree respectfully with the governor on his position on whether redevelopment is a good thing or a bad thing, he is in a position that is truly unenviable. He's trying to manage a huge deficit. He has a legislature that wants to continue all the programs they have in place. They don't want to reduce anything.
Although they've had to. I mean, they've cut tremendously.
They've done some, but not happily. And the citizenry is loath to add new taxes, and I think it's tight as to whether we'll even continue the existing taxes.
Right. We have Prop 30 coming on the ballot, and as we speak today, it's leading, but not by much, and there are real concerns about whether that will pass in terms of the proponents' concerns.
I think that will be a close vote.
So what can be done as we move forward? Because look, cities in a lot of ways are the lifeblood of our state. I'm not trying to criticize the rural areas, but I mean, look, the current mayor of Riverside was the president of the National League of Cities.
That's right.
I mean, you, if anyone, would understand how cities are vital to kind of the health of regions.
Yeah, other than agriculture, most of the gross domestic product is produced in cities. That's where industry is located. Industry tends and big business tends to not be in the rural areas.
Right.
And so cities do play a huge role.
And it's interesting because Riverside is that kind of bridge city in that it has, obviously, it's a medium to large size city. It has active business, but there are ag areas, of course, in the city and around. And so you in a lot of ways can be a voice, if you so choose, for that blend. But I mean, just from my side, it seems like those voices are being crushed.
I think in this economic climate and this political climate, that's true. The cities are coming out on the short end. For our 4 local cities, all of the cities in this area are kind of banding together and trying to support each other. There are potentially some options for short-term loan from the county for Jurupa Valley in particular, which
borders Riverside.
Yeah,
I mean, literally.
And is the newest of the cities.
Right. But there's also discussion of disincorporation.
That's entirely possible,
and
that
so,
they could end up there.
Right. And so, well, I mean, is the answer annexation? I mean, should a larger city like Riverside annex as a way to help these cities and be part of the greater good?
I don't know that would be desirable to the residents of Jurupa Valley to become part of another city. I think they would rather disincorporate than become part of Riverside or Chino or any of the adjoining cities. Because they want their own identity. It's, as people and as residents of a city, we have a certain amount of pride in my city, and I don't want to become part of some other city, even though I may admire it in many respects. I want to be myself, not part of someone else.
So as you look forward, do you believe that relations between state and cities will start to improve, or are you more pessimistic?
Long term, they'll improve. They have to. We can't continue to butt heads with each other. And as the economy begins to pick up, and the economic picture improves overall, the cause of the conflict will go away.
I understand. Okay, his name is Mike Gardner. He is a member of the Riverside City Council. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition.